I grew up in a broken home. My parents got a divorce at a very young age. I was only 2 years old, and my dad had beat my mom so severely that she was in the hospital for 2 weeks. This caused my mom to go out and search for love in all the wrong places, and she ended up meeting a man who became my stepfather. He beat my mom severely, anytime they went out and partied or drinking and stuff like that. I was surrounded by drugs and violence since a very early age, and this caused me to go into a tailspin in my mind as a kid, and I ended up trying to commit suicide by the age of 11. I tied a belt around my neck, and I just sat there and I did it as tight as I could, and my brother ended up finding me and walked into the room, and that actually is what saved my life that day. I never told anybody what my stepfather was doing to me, and I was basically just living a lie, bouncing from house to house, from place to place, very unstable life. After this, I just started partying real heavily, drinking real heavily, doing drugs, doing shrooms, smoking weed, and I ended up being really violent. I had a lot of anger and bitterness and unforgiveness in my heart. I hated men with a passion. I was just so angry that my life had turned out this way. Watching my mom get beat around every corner and being sexually abused and physically abused. At this point, I'm a teenager. I'm in my mid-teens. I had lost most of my grandparents, which were my stability, my only stability that I had. I moved to Seattle, Washington, and there I continued my path of destruction, and I just got deeper and deeper involved with, smoking weed, trying other kinds of drugs. And I was just doing all this because, I was so angry and I was lost in my mind, and, I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about anything. I didn't finish school. I quit everything. At this point, I ended up pregnant with my firstborn. I didn't want to bring kids into a world like this. I started to contemplate a lot of things. I don't want my daughter to have the life that I did.
What was your turning point?
Well, now I'm pregnant. I'm about to be a single mom. The father doesn't, so it's not my kid. These things start going through my mind. I already hate men. Now I hate men even more, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think, I just thought everybody was going to do bad to you. I thought there was just no good men in the world, that people were just out to hurt you. I just started thinking, what am I going to do? I want to be with the father of my child because I don't want, things to happen to my kid that happened to me. I need to change something in my life. I had history as a child going to church and my grandmother praying for me, and I started to really reflect back on these things. I started to really think about my grandma and maybe what she would tell me. I started to seek God. I started to pray and read my Bible. I wasn't going to church. I was still kind of in between, and I really just knew that I needed to change for my life, for my daughter. My daughter ended up being born there in Seattle. A couple months later, I had a cousin pass away, and I ended up moving back to New Mexico, where I did start going to church and completely surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. And God really started working in my life. He started to take things from me, a lot of my anger and my bitterness, my hatred, my violence. I actually started praying for a good man that would treat my daughter as his own.
So how's your life different now that you accepted Jesus Christ?
Well, I'm married to a wonderful man. We have 4 kids. 2 of them are my stepkids, and God has allowed me to go through things too. And He has given me the ability to actually be a good step-parent and to lead them in the right direction and love them as if they were my own. My husband loves my daughter as it was his own, and he has since she was the age of 2. She's now 8. I don't do drugs anymore. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I'm not a violent person anymore. I have forgave those that I needed to forgive. And I was actually able to tell my mom the truth about what happened to me as a kid, and this just brought, I had been living this life for so long. It just brought such a liberty to my life. I wouldn't have to live in fear anymore about what was going to happen to my daughter. The devil, would always lie to me, this person's going to do that, that person's going to do that. And when I got saved and I got married and I gave my life to Jesus Christ, I was able to let go. I was able to not live the lie anymore. Who the Son sets free is free indeed, and that is so true, and I can testify to that. Jesus brought a joy and a happiness that I had been trying to feel for my whole life. I had been carrying this big weight, and just in giving my life to Jesus Christ, He took that burden from me. My name is Victoria, and this is how Jesus changed my story. How will He change yours?